everyone, and welcome back. It's Gina from orchidandopal.com, and today I'm bringing you the next tutorial for the Cherry Blossom Festival box that I helped to curate with Beading School. I'll leave the link to that box right down below the video so you can get your hands on it if you'd like to, but this is just one of the pieces you can make from the contents inside. These earrings you could absolutely use as a pendant instead. You could use them as some other beaded component. Not just earrings, so it's a very flexible design and another way to bezel some of these 14mm stones. Now I also have the example in the aqua that I made with 14mm rivolis, just to give you another example of how rivolis would look if used instead of these lotus blossom shapes. I'll leave the full list of materials down below, as well as links to everything that I'm using today and the quantities you'll need. Of course, you can pick up everything you need separately at Beading School, and they also have a wide range of other colors if you'd like to get creative and go with a totally different color palette. For seed beads, we'll be using some size 11 and some size 15 in the Miyuki brand. You'll also need some 4mm bicones, 2mm fire polished rounds, or other 2mm beads, two 14mm crystals, of course your earwire findings, and you can also use some drop beads like the one I have in this example, and of course that's optional as well. I'll be using my go-to 6-pound test Fireline for my beading thread and a size 11 beading needle, and of course beyond that, just your basic supplies like scissors, jewelry pliers, and a bead mat. Once you gather up your materials and thread your needle with a comfortable length of beading thread, we can go ahead and jump into this tutorial. With this project, I will be using the black colored beading thread, but I definitely recommend using the crystal or white color if you have it, because that will keep our light pink bicones looking nice and light and bright, but I wanted to use the black to make it a little bit easier to see as we're going through the steps. We're going to begin by creating a right angle weave bezel for our crystal. So something a little different than a typical peyote stitch bezeled beginning with this project. And to start, we're going to pick up 4 of our size 11-0 seed beads. Go ahead and string those down to the end of your beading thread and leave yourself about a 5-inch tail or so that you will be able to weave back in later. And take your needle and head back up through the first seed bead that you added. Pull this and bring these beads into a little cluster just like that. And just to secure this, so you don't have to use a stop bead if you don't want to, you can just go under the thread bridge there and make a half hitch knot. So now the beginning of our piece is secure and we can move on. I'm going to proceed through the next bead, which happens to be down that one right there on the side. And then we'll continue with our right angle weave beading stitch by picking up 3 more seed beads. Then we're going to go down through that same bead that we had just exited. So now we have 2 units of right angle weave coming down out of this bead right here. And we're going to sew to the right and then sew up the next bead so we're in position to add another little cluster. Pull nice and tight, and you should have this so far. We're going to keep going with our right angle weave until this strip is 17 units long. Let's go ahead and do our next one together. Once again, we're picking up 3 beads. We'll sew up through the bead that we're currently coming out of. Then we'll sew to the right. And this time we'll sew down. So we're coming out of the bead that's on the end. And now we have 3 right angle weave units. It's okay if it's a little bit loose as we make the strip. This will all come together as we go. So go ahead and make a total of 17 units, do 14 more, and then we'll meet back and continue with the next steps. All right, now just double check and make sure you have 17 units, and you can do that by just counting, say, the bead on the bottom of each one. So count all of those, make sure you have 17. Then we're going to bring this together and form it into a loop. I'm currently coming down out of this bead on the end. I'm going to pick up one seed bead and pick up the beginning of this strip of beadwork. And to bring these together, I need to go up through the first bead, pick up one more seed bead, and then this time go down through the seed bead that's on the other end. So we're kind of creating our 18th unit there and bringing that together. And now I'm going to sew around those beads just in that section one more time to reinforce it. And coming down out of that one right there. And then I'm going to go to the right to be coming out of one of those on the bottom. At this point, I recommend going ahead and weaving in your tail thread. That way we can get it out of the way for the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. All right, now we're going to be widening our beaded bezel. And for me, it's comfortable to sort of slide that on my fingertip to hold this while I am beading, but you can do whatever you like. My thread is coming right out of this one right here, and we're going to continue sewing around this ring at that same level. And what we're going to do is pick up a seed bead and then sew through the next one. And do that all the way around. Pick up a seed bead and sew through the next one. So we're kind of starting to do more of a peyote style stitch right now, where we are inserting a bead in each of these gaps. And you can continue to do that all the way around until you get to the other side. And now once you get to the last spot, you can insert your bead like you normally would, going through the next bead, and then go through the next one, which is sitting up just a little bit. That's where you step up, and we're going to bring in now our size 15-0 seed beads to continue to add on to this loop and start to make this side get a little smaller. And just like we did before, we'll go all the way around, picking up a 15-0, skipping the next 11-0, and then going through the next one, which is sticking up just a little bit. Pick up a 15-0, skip the next one, and then go through the next. And continue that until you've got a ring of 15-0s all the way around your piece. And just as you did before, when you get to your last one, you'll pick up your bead, go through the next bead, and then step up by going through that 15-0 that you get to next. And you can pull this nice and tight and pull as you go to get this to its smaller shape that will hold the back of the cabochon in place. Now we're going to do one more row of 15-0s all the way around. So pick one up, go through the next 15-0 this time. Pick one up, go through the next 15-0, and continue on, at which point we will meet back and move on to our next steps. So there's a look at what you should have so far, and right now I just recommend you sewing through those 15-0s one more time. I like to do 2 at a time, going through diagonally and tightening them up as I go, because we want to reinforce this section. That's where the back of the stone is going to be, and every little bit helps when it comes to those tension spots. We want everything to be tight so our stone stays in place. Once you've done that, then follow your thread path, weaving back and forth through the beads and be coming out of one of the 11-0 seed beads on the other side. I'm gonna go ahead and finish tightening up this side, and then I'll meet you back for the next steps. All right, so coming out of the other side, I'm exiting from the size 11 right here, and I brought in my 11s back to the bead mat because we're going to actually be doing the same exact thing we did on the other side to create the top part of our bezel. So to begin, once again, we're going to be adding in one size 11 in between each of these 11s that are sticking up on this row. I'm going to do one round of size 11s like I'm doing, one round of size 15s, then we'll meet back to insert the stone, finish up with one final 15 round, and then do our tightening up. So keep going and I'll meet you back in just a moment. And welcome back. Now you can take your stone and insert it face up into the bezel. And we are going to complete our final row of 15 O's and really start to tighten this up. So let's go. Pick up one 15-0, sew through the next, and repeat all the way around. All right, so your bezel should look like this, and it feels just slightly loose, but not loose enough to where the stone is going to come out. And what we want to do now is follow our thread path down towards the bottom of the piece. So just weave through. You want to be coming out of one of the 11 O's in this row right here. So it was part of that initial right angle weave, not the lowest 11 O's, but the ones that are slightly indented towards the top. So go through one of those. And then this is where you're going to bring in your quarter Tila beads, and we're going to start sewing some of those in an alternating pattern with some size 11-0 seed beads. So first what you want to do is pick up a quarter Tila and then look directly in front of you, not to the bead on either side of where you're coming out, but go through the next one in that same exact row. Then you'll pick up a size 11-0 and go through the next one in the row and repeat this all the way around. This time we're doing the quarter Tila, and then we're going to do an 11-0. And you can see how these beads are sticking out on the edge, giving us a spot to continue to add on to. So keep doing that, and then we'll meet back once you've added those in the alternating pattern all the way around. All right, here we are so far. I have one more seed bead to add in. So we'll do that like we were doing, and then go through that bottom hole of the quarter Tila. And then this is where you're going to add a quarter Tila to either side of those seed beads. So I have one on my needle, and then I'm going to go through the next seed bead that's sticking up. Pick up another quarter Tila. Go through the next quarter Tila through the bottom hole. And repeat this all the way around. Quarter Tila, sew through the seed bead. Quarter Tila, and sew through the bottom of the next quarter Tila. Continue that process, and then we'll meet back once we get to the other side. All right, and I have one more to go. And this time I'm going to sew through the next two Tila beads. And I'm going to step up by sewing through the open holes of the next 3/4 Tilas. And pull. And now our next step is to add in one of our bicones in between every 3/4 Tilas. So pick up a bicone, sew through the next 3/4 Tilas, pick up a bicone, go through the next 3/4 Tilas, and so on all around the piece. And continue doing that, and then we'll meet back again. All right, I have one more to go. I'm going to pick up that bicone and then sew through the next 3/4 Tilas as normal, and also sew through the next bicone. We'll continue going around, this time picking up one size 11/0 seed bead, one bicone, and one 11/0. And then you can sew through the next bicone. So size 11/0, bicone, and 11/0, and through the next bicone. Continue doing that all the way around, and we'll meet back once again. And now on the last one, I'll be going through the bicone as usual, but I'll also go through the next seed bead and bicone. This time we'll need to bring in our 2mm beads. And we're going to pick up a 2mm, an 11/0, and a 2mm, then skip those next 3 beads and go through the next bicone that's sticking up. So once again, a 2mm, an 11/0, and a 2mm, and then go through the next bicone that's sticking up. And continue doing that all the way around, and we'll meet back. And with the last one to complete, we'll go through the bicone as usual. Then go through the next 2mm bead. And here you'll be adding on 3 15/0s in between each of these 2mm. So then sew through the 2mm, the bicone, and the 2mm. Now pick up 3 15/0s and sew through the next 2mm bicone and 2mm. Keep doing that, and we'll meet back once again to complete the next steps. I'm coming out of this 2mm right here, and I'm just going to weave back through the piece a little bit to follow my thread path. I'm going to go back through the size 11/0 and the bicone right there, then through the outer hole of those 3/4 Tilas. And I'm going to bend that back just a little bit gently. I'm going to sew through the 3/4 Tilas through their inner hole and exit from this next seed bead that's sitting right there in front of the bicone. Now pick up a 15/0, a 2mm, and a 15/0, and then sew through that next 11/0 that comes after those 3/4 Tilas. Repeat this all the way around, so 15/0, 2mm, 15/0, then skip the next 3/4 Tilas and go through the 11/0. Repeat that all the way around, and then we'll meet back and continue on. And now I'm at the last section, so I'm going to go through the 11/0 like I normally would. And then I'm going to step up and sew through the next 15/0, 2mm, and 15/0. Hold that nice and tight. And now we're going to insert 2 15/0s in between each of those new sections. So I picked up 2, and now I'm going through the 15/0, 2mm, 15/0. And I'm going to repeat that all the way around. Picking up 2, and then going through those next 3 beads. Picking up 2, and going through those next 3. Continue that process, and once again we will meet back. And now I'm inserting my last 2, and I'm going to continue sewing around that entire new ring of beads to tighten this up. Then follow your thread path to get to the outer ring of beads once again. I'm just going to sew back and forth through these beads, going through the quarter Tilas. And now through this bicone. We want to be coming out one of those second 15-0s, or the one located in the center. That's where we're going to attach our drop bead. So you can see that I'm coming out of the left of this 15-0 at the bottom, and I'm going to pick up one 15-0, one 2mm, and I'm going to sew down through one of the drop beads, bring those up to my work. Let's pick up an 11-0, that's going to sit at the bottom, and then go back up the drop bead and the 2mm. And pull this up to your beadwork. And now pick up a 15-0 and sew back through the 15-0 on the bottom or center of that peak where we had started adding the drop, and sew down that entire ring of beads again to reinforce it. And go up through the 15-0 on that side, and once again sew through the central 15-0 and keep sewing through your piece until you get to the top, which is at the very opposite of where the drop is located. So now I'm exiting from the 2mm that is to the left of that bicone that's at the very top, and we're ready to attach our ear wire finding, and you can do that by picking up 3 of your 11-0s, and you can just sew directly into the earring finding if you want to. Pick up 3 more 11-0s. Then sew through the 2mm and the 11-0 and the next 2mm on the other side. Pull that and it will start to straighten up. And then we're going to go back through some of these beads and reinforce that section. So I'm just following the thread path again through these 11-0s and bicones. And now that I'm coming out of that bicone, I'll go up through the seed beads and the ear wire again, and down through these seed beads. And I think I'll just go to the left through that bicone that's underneath this time. There we go, and just keep sewing through some of these beads. At this point, you can make some half-hitch knots to start to secure your thread. Then keep sewing through a few more. We'll make another one right there. And continue. And I'll make one more right here. And then I'll trim off the excess. So that wraps it up for our Cherry Blossom Festival earrings. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I am so glad to have you here. Thank you for joining me today. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Let me know if you've made these or plan to make them or anything else you'd like to say. Don't forget you can find the link for the Cherry Blossom Festival box right below the video, as well as the entire list of materials and links to where you can find them, as well as the quantities. If you enjoyed the video, definitely feel free to give it a big thumbs up. Also subscribe while you're here and share the tutorial with your other beading friends. I'll be back again real soon, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. And as always, happy beading.